Hey everybody, Some Gadget Guy here, and I've finally spent a little time playing with the Nokia Lumia 830 on AT&T, and it's time to share my thoughts. What we're looking at is a very solid mid-range offering from Microsoft, Nokia, Microkia, Microsoft. But this Lumia team has been doing incredible work at the mid-range and entry-level segments of the smartphone market. Now, a quick size comparison, the 830 is rocking a 5-inch diagonal LCD display, so it comes in very close to the size of a phone like the Lumia 930/Icon. And of course, next to some of Nokia's other humongous screened experiments like the 1320, you can see how much smaller this phone is. And in terms of overall form factor, here it is next to my Lumia 1020 with a 4.5-inch diagonal screen. Walking around the hardware on the phone, we're continuing to see this metal and plastic aesthetic which started with the Lumia 925, and I'm really enjoying on Lumia devices. We've got a nice taper on the glass from the screen coming into these sharp corners here on the sides. Now, I can't say I'm still a fan of these super sharp corners, especially when you're holding the phone. It's kind of a little pointy, it kind of digs into the pad of your hand a little bit. What I think is really interesting about the 830's design is that it seems to be pulling sharper corners like the ones found on the 1520 versus the more rounded corners that we see on the 930 or Icon. And if you've seen any of my other reviews or comparisons on the 930, you would know that I even find these corners to be a touch sharp in the hand. 5-inch screen to 5-inch screen, the dimensions on the 830 are very similar to those found on the 930. While they're almost exactly the same width, the 830 is a little bit taller, but thankfully it's a little bit slimmer, as that has been a common criticism for the 930 being kind of a chunky butt. The 5-inch screen is very bright, and it does feature that outdoor viewability mode that I can't really show off on camera very well, but has become sort of a hallmark of Nokia Lumia devices, being able to crank the screen brightness and then also change the contrast, which might wash out some colors, but make your display much easier to see when you're in direct sunlight. The 720p resolution isn't as much of a bummer as I think some other folks have made it out to be. Of course, I would prefer having a 1080p screen on a phone this size, but it's only when I'm holding phones side by side that I see any kind of distinct material advantage for a 1080p screen. And I think 720p is perfectly reasonable to get you through the day, especially covering the basics, and especially at the price point that we're talking for a mid-range device. And the rest of this phone is pretty normal Nokia fare. We of course have the 3 wonderful buttons on the right side of the phone, power button in the middle right where you think your thumb should line up with it, a dedicated 2-stage camera button which will launch the camera app and take photos and videos, and a very minimal volume rocker. After using phones like the Galaxy Alpha, I do wish they would add some kind of sculpting or tactile feel. You could better feel where the up and down buttons are. Of course, there is absolutely nothing on the opposite side of the phone. On top of the phone, we have a centered headphone jack and also the micro USB port for charging and syncing, and I'm not sure I quite love the placement of this micro USB port, especially for those times when I have to charge my phone off of some kind of portable battery in my pocket. And we got the loudspeaker on the back of the phone, and of course it wouldn't be a Lumia mid-range or otherwise without a fantastic pure view camera. This is a 10 megapixel 3rd-inch sensor with optical image stabilization and a Zeiss lens. Of course, you know I already have separate reviews of camera performance and speaker performance on this channel, so you can see how this thing performs in real-world conditions. And a feature I'm sure folks are going to love is when you peel off the back plate, we have access to the battery and a micro SD card slot capable of supporting up to a 128 gigabyte micro SD card. Man, it's a feature I wish flagships like the 930 had, just being able to add a ton more storage to your phone. Now, one of the interesting design elements in keeping this phone as slim as possible is just how wide the battery is. This is a 2200 milliamp hour cell, and it's super skinny. I was actually shocked when I pulled this thing out of the box, as I don't know that I've ever seen a battery this slim, this thin before. This is where we'll also find access to a nano SIM here, keeping everything as sleek and as slim as possible, probably the smart play and saving a little space using that style SIM card. Of course, in the box, AT&T also provides us a second backplate, so I'm gonna be rocking my Hulk green backplate for the rest of this review. Just a nice touch to let you also know that this is a customizable backplate, and it's a very easy clue so that people will know, oh, I can take this thing off and replace it with a different color if I would like to make my 830 a little more unique. And performance is really what you would come to expect from this style of phone from Microsoft now. There aren't really a lot of surprises with the 830. I've generally found that mid-ranger and entry-level Windows phones tend to be better buys than mid-ranger and entry-level Android phones. So spec for spec, I think Windows Phone is a more power-efficient operating system that does a better job of utilizing these mid-range guts. And flicking through lists of apps, pulling down your notification tray, getting into settings, all of the UI navigation. Wonderfully smooth, very crisp, very clean. This Qualcomm 400 quad-core is just a really well-understood processor at this point, so there aren't any big surprises in terms of performance, even for things like fairly high-end gaming apps like Asphalt 8. Now, it's not the snappiest system, but it'll get you into playing a game reasonably quickly, and it's still maintaining some of those fun lighting and particle effects that we've seen on other more higher end phones. I mean, if you're looking for that power user experience, then the 830 probably wasn't a phone you were shopping in the first place. And the Lumia 830 supports wireless charging on the QI standard. No, I actually do need to give AT&T a thumbs up there because they've been backing PMA for a while. They removed wireless charging from the Lumia 1520. So those of us who are fans of this feature, the fact that we don't have to put it in a special case or have some weird backplate or sled attached to our phone, and that it's gonna be compatible with every single Nokia accessory that's come out in the past, I'm just really happy to see that return. Which means hopefully moving forward on future Microsoft handsets, this is a feature that will remain unmolested. So even though this thing's rocking Lumia denim, we still don't have access to the new Lumia camera that's supposed to be coming out. We're still using the older Lumia classic camera or the Nokia camera, whatever it is that we're going to call this camera right now. This is still one of my all-time favorite camera apps for quickly getting into individual settings that allow us to control shutter speed and exposure and ISO, manually focus, and even white balance is very quickly accessible from a little slide here on the side. It's still unknown whether or not this camera will ever support 4K video recording with the chipset built into it. I don't think that's very likely, but what we do get is one of the highest quality 1080p shooters using a 1/3 inch sensor available on the market today. But with Lumia Denim, we do have support for things like app folders, so that's pretty cool. We can kind of organize our live tiles in a slightly nicer way. Also, another nice touch, the FM radio has not been disabled. I don't know what's going on with AT&T right now, but they're letting us have all of the goodies from the international versions of our phones. It makes me so happy. And recent power management improvements have been really nice. That synergy between software, the Windows Phone operating system, and then the hardware that it's mated to. This only has a 2200 milliamp hour battery in it, and I have no problems getting all the way through dinner time and into the evening without having to worry about recharging on my fairly moderate or somewhat aggressive usage depending on how you compare phone usage. But managing multiple email accounts and pretty much every single social networking service under the sun, with taking some photos and a little navigation here and there, I don't have any problems running this phone all day. And as we would expect, we still have full access to all of the other fun features, mixed radio, Cortana, the excellent driving mode, which can automatically pair Bluetooth devices to give you hands-free alerts for things like texts and phone calls, and the terrific collection of here maps for geolocation, search, and navigation. Of course, one of the things I always love about a Windows phone is what you can do about bloatware. So let's say you never use AT&T Navigator. Sorry, AT&T, I'm more of a here maps kind of guy. You can always go in and uninstall it. Unlike Android phones, where a lot of that stuff gets locked down, you can always count on a Windows phone to help you clean out some of that bloat. And I have mentioned this point on previous reviews, but there's just something really exciting about how ubiquitous high-speed 4G LTE has become. So even our mid-range and entry-level phones are not deprived of having super fast data. And the Qualcomm 400 with the LTE chipset in here, and some of the recent improvements to network that AT&T has built up in my area, provide for a wonderful data experience. I can be really brutal on mid-rangers, but I think Windows Phone offers up a slightly nicer proposition in this mid-range price point, where this Lumia 830 is going to retail for around $450 off contract. I think it not only outperforms similarly priced Android hardware, it's still very capable of going toe-to-toe with phones like the iPhone 6. I think the iPhone 6 is going to be a little snappier, especially things like firing up the camera. There is just no phone that gets you into the camera as quickly as an iPhone. But the Lumia 830 is more than capable of going toe-to-toe with the iPhone 6 in a number of other categories. Camera performance, speaker performance, the headphone jack is phenomenal. You get excellent runtime out of the battery with these lower power internals. The screen resolution is almost the same as what you'd find on an iPhone 6. Plus you can swap that battery and increase your storage if you need to add more storage, so buying a 16GB phone isn't as scary a proposition in this day and age. I'm sorry folks, 16GB on the iPhone 6 is just way too lean for a flagship phone in the year 2014. So folks, I still do need to deliver my mid-ranger warning for the Lumia 830. For those of you out there really savvy shoppers, I think this is is an excellent solution for a premium feeling phone that's not gonna break the bank. But of course, you're really gonna wanna look at those individual features and what your budget will allow for things that you need versus things that you want before you make a purchasing decision on anything in the mid-range. But playing with the Lumia 830, I'm really excited with where Nokia has gone with their phones of late, and I hope that this continues on into a new flagship phone, hopefully the beginning of next year. But of course, I want to hear from you folks, especially those of you out there maybe shopping a phone in the mid-range. What is it that draws you to a mid-range phone? If you're looking at price to performance ratios, what kind of features or software might sway you from one phone to another? Definitely drop me a comment down below because I love getting into conversations like that. As always, folks, thanks so much for watching my videos, subscribing to this channel. Definitely subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. And I would not be able to continue producing reviews like this if you folks weren't out there sharing my videos with your family, friends, and on social media, so I cannot thank you enough for bringing all these extra cool people to the party. Hit that thumbs up button, and I will catch you all on the next review. But for as fun as green might be, Microsoft, if you could bring back cyan. I really miss that shade of blue on Lumia phones. I'll be your best friend.